Today, we're diving into the ever-evolving cyber threat landscape and its direct impact on small and medium-sized businesses.
SMBs are more limited than larger corporations in terms of the amount of investment they can put into cybersecurity solutions.
There's always room for improvement in supporting small businesses with cyber risk management.
The insurance industry is a backward-looking industry just by its nature. We rely on actuarial data based on losses or claims that we've seen in the past.
Listeners, if you are confident in your cyber defense, please remember that being proactive about cybersecurity is essential for protecting your business from growing threats. It's not just a big company problem anymore. Hi everyone, this is Maheen and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, where we explore the essential strategies and solutions that empower Canadian businesses to thrive securely in the digital age. Today we're diving into the ever-evolving cyber threat landscape and its direct impact on small and medium-sized businesses. Now, recent stats, they indicate that cyber threats are no longer just a problem for large corporations. Canadian SMEs are increasingly becoming targets, facing significant risks to their data, operations, and reputation. And this discussion, it will provide valuable insights into understanding these threats and arming your business against them. And to discuss this, joining us today is Jonathan Weeks, the president of Canada at BOXX Insurance Inc, a global award-winning provider for cyber protection services and cyber insurance coverage, headquartered right here in Toronto. And today we'll discuss the cyber threat landscape for Canadian SMEs, how small businesses can arm themselves against cyber threats, and the proactive role of cyber insurance. And without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Jonathan. Jonathan, we're very pleased to have you on the show today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Very pleased to have you with us. Now, Jonathan, let's open our discussion by understanding the cyber threat landscape for Canadian SMEs, because as I mentioned in my intro as well, SMBs, they face increasing risks in today's digital world. Tell us, why do Canadian SMEs in particular need to worry about cyber threats, and what are some of the key cyber stats that are specific to SMEs that highlight the urgency of this issue? Like, how does this landscape affect their supply chain risks?
Yeah, it's a great question because SMBs are more limited than larger corporations in terms of the amount of investment they can put into cybersecurity solutions. They're also more susceptible to breaches in general, just due to a lack of training, a lack of sophistication in some instances when it comes to cybersecurity and data privacy. And we've found that they're just naturally more susceptible. A couple of stats that are a little staggering. Every 11 seconds in Canada, a small to medium-sized business is impacted by either a cyber event or a fraud attempt against the organization. So several times a minute, we have a Canadian SME being impacted by cybercrime. 43% of all cyber attacks now target small businesses. So we're creeping up to the majority of cyber attacks within this country being focused on what is the most vulnerable sector of this country. And Canada is truly a country built on small businesses. So when you think of 43% of small businesses being the target of cyber attacks, it's a pretty staggering number. The average cost for a cyber attack for small businesses in this country is just under $300,000. So if we look at a massive multinational organization, that probably wouldn't be a huge impact to them. But for an SME that's maybe making $1 million, $2 million, that's a huge chunk off of their bottom line. And when we look at the cost of a data breach across Canada, across every sector, size of organization, that's well above $500 million US now. So imagine a small business is impacted by one of those larger breaches, it could essentially bankrupt them on the spot.
Absolutely. And those statistics are quite sobering, and it truly underscores that cyber threats are a very real and present danger for SMBs pretty much across Canada. Now let's explore the practical steps that small businesses can take to protect themselves from these growing cyber threats. Now, with the rising risks, small businesses, they need to adopt practical, cost-effective measures to protect themselves. Given this escalating threat landscape, Jonathan, what are the most practical and most effective steps that Canadian businesses can take to arm themselves against cyber threats, even without extensive IT resources?
Great question. So The first thing I encourage our clients to do is to just stay informed. There's so much information online, whether it's on platforms like LinkedIn or just generally around information security community. There's so many blogs, articles, everything that they can do to just stay informed on the current threat. Um, I I think the other thing that I recommend is just ask for help.
Right.
They'd be surprised at how cost efficient or cost effective getting the support from a cybersecurity consultant or firm can be. And if they can't even afford to seek the help of a third party provider, using the tools that they already have and coupling that with some training around how to best use those tools or switch on certain features of those tools can be very, very effective. As an example, one of the questions we ask our clients when they're applying for insurance is whether they have multi-factor authentication in place for things like email, remote access, or privileged access. Many of our clients say remote access, like it's just me. I'm a small business. I have myself and my two counterparts that are running the business. We don't have a large network where we remote in through a VPN or a similar tool.
Right.
When it comes to the email, though, most of our clients are operating either in the Google suite, so using Gmail and the Google tools, or they're in Office 365. In both of those environments, it's actually a matter of flipping a switch to turn multi-factor authentication on. And when you register for a Microsoft account, it's actually on by default most of the time. So if you look into this and you see that it isn't turned on for your organization, particularly for email, which is a very easy conduit for a cyber attack, you would have had to actively turn that off in many cases, or one of your staff would have had to.
Right.
So leveraging the tools you already have, having a good understanding of the threat environment, and training yourself and your staff to understand the risk and easy steps that can be taken to prevent a cyber attack are very easy solutions that cost almost nothing.
No, that's a very actionable set of recommendations, Jonathan. And you're right, focusing on fundamental implementable strategies is so crucial for SMEs. Listeners, if you are confident in your cyber defense, please remember that being proactive about cybersecurity is essential for protecting your business from growing threats. It's not just a big company problem anymore. Now let's get back to our conversation with Jonathan and explore the proactive role of cyber insurance. Now let's dive into how cyber insurance, like BOXX's approach, plays a proactive role in preventing cyber threats, because protecting businesses from cyber threats, it goes beyond coverage, right? It's really about anticipating risks and taking proactive steps to prevent damage before it even happens. Jonathan, how does cyber insurance, and particularly BOXX's approach, play a proactive role in protecting SMEs from cyber threats, going beyond just financial coverage to help predict and prevent negative cyber events?
Another phenomenal question. I've been working in cyber insurance for coming up on 10 years now.
Wow.
And prior to that, cyber was not a line of insurance that many folks were buying. It was generally purchased by very large financial institutions, some post-secondary institutions, some retailers were buying it just because I think it's easier for them to understand the exposure, either from a privacy or an operational perspective. Over those 10 years, cyber insurance policies have transformed, but the approach to cyber insurance has also shifted quite a bit. So when I first started looking at cyber, you had one of two paths. If you were a large organization, you had to fill out this enormous questionnaire about your governance and controls when it comes to your information security and privacy. That shifted to those applications getting quite short. So even a multi-million dollar organization that's making hundreds of millions or even $1 billion could secure cyber insurance by filling out a 2 or 3 page application, which generally is not enough to capture or for us to assess the risk adequately. At the same time, small businesses were not being asked any questions. So we would just ask, what's the name of your organization, your address, your revenues, the number of employees you had, and then we'd spit out a quote. That does exist in some cases now, but what we've found now is we're taking a risk-focused approach now. So rather than, for example, I was a broker up until a couple of months ago. I'm now on the insurance company side. So as a broker, the questions I would ask my insured were to get a better understanding of their risk as a whole and to assess how well they know their risk to determine what path I need to take with them. So what you find now for very large organizations, those questionnaires have actually gotten longer over the past 3 to 4 years because we've recognized we really need to do a deeper dive into their governance and controls to assess the risk itself, assign a rate or a premium to it, and provide the client with capacity. For small businesses, you either have that very easy route that I mentioned a bit earlier, where they answer a couple of questions, they get a quote, they're on their way. But there are also other firms like BOXX. We do ask a few questions. And it's not just so that we can assess the risk, it's also to get the client thinking about the risk. So if we ask you, do you have multi-factor authentication in place? Do you take backups at least weekly, preferably daily? We're asking that to get the client thinking about, if they don't have that in place, why don't they have that in place?
Right.
So we are taking a much more risk-focused approach. At BOXX Insurance, we take an even more interesting approach. Our whole approach to cyber is the predict, prevent, respond, and recover. Right? So the predict piece comes into play with a lot of our risk management tools that we provide our clients, just by virtue of them being a client of ours. So we provide them with thousands of dollars worth of technology just by virtue of being a client, including things like attack surface management. So a tool that monitors the perimeter of their network for any obvious vulnerabilities that could be leveraged by a hacker. And if we pick up on something, we actually send them an alert so that they know that there's an opportunity for someone to potentially gain access to their network and cause harm. We also provide them with things like identity monitoring. So they can enter the email addresses of all their staff into the environment that we provide them with. It's a platform that sort of hosts everything all in one place. And that actually scans the dark web for hacker chatter. So if we pick up on activity online that the organization or a member of that organization is either in the middle of a cyber attack or there's just hacker chatter about it, identifying them as a good target, we'll alert that client to that so that they can take steps to avoid that altogether. On the softer side of things, we also provide all of our clients with cyber awareness training. So we provide modules that help them understand the risk, how to protect themselves, and also avoid things like fraud. And then we also provide them with a lot of policies, templates, and resources that they can implement within their organizations so that they're better prepared for a cyber attack. And then I always leave the insurance for last, because in my opinion, if you do all those things really, really well, you should never really have to use your cyber insurance policy. But the policy is there to protect you financially when all of your efforts just weren't enough. And cyber insurance, it pays claims. If we look at the market, it was what we call a soft market, where there's an abundance of capacity and rates are quite low, a lot of competition. That's where we were probably from 2017 up until 2019. Anyone who's purchased cyber insurance between 2020 and probably 2022 did not have a super fun time because we went through what we call a hard market cycle, where rates go up, there's less capacity available to buyers, and the access or the point of access for insurance in terms of how you qualify also becomes a little bit more challenging. We've now reached a sort of a happy mid-ground between a very soft and a very hard market, and the coverage is very accessible. It is still priced very competitively, and we got to that place by shifting our strategy around how we assess risk in order to deploy our capacity.
Absolutely. That's a very clear articulation of the value proposition. And it sounds like BOXX is aiming to be that true partner in cyber defense, not just a policy provider. Jonathan has provided valuable insights on how cyber insurance goes beyond just financial coverage to play a proactive role in protecting SMEs. We'll take a short break here, and when we return, we'll discuss how the insurance industry can better support small businesses in navigating and mitigating cyber risks.
Hey. You think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. Still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah. Well, book it. ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back, everyone. Now let's discuss into how the insurance industry can better support small businesses and help them effectively manage the growing cyber risks that they face. Now let's discuss how the industry can better support small businesses in managing cyber risks, Jonathan, because there's always room for improvement in supporting small businesses with cyber risk management. From your perspective, what could the insurance industry as a whole be doing better to support SMEs and their employees in navigating and mitigating cyber risks?
Yeah, I think communication is the real opportunity here, and education through communication. The insurance industry is a backward-looking industry just by its nature. We rely on actuarial data based on losses or claims that we've seen in the past.
Mm-hmm.
With a risk like cyber that is very forward-looking in terms of the risk, but backward-looking in terms of how we rate our policies, we have to find a middle ground that really makes sense. And we have to equip our insureds or our prospective insureds with the necessary information to help them understand the risk a little bit better.
Right.
And I think, again, as a former broker, we did a pretty good job of trying to explain the risk to the insureds. We maybe didn't do as well of a job explaining the potential impact if they don't explore cyber insurance as a risk transfer vehicle. So I think more communication around cyber insurance itself, how it differs from other lines of insurance, the likelihood of a loss relative to other lines of insurance. An interesting thing that has been coming up in our industry a lot lately is that you're much more likely to experience a cyber attack that impacts your organization from a financial perspective than you are to experience a slip and fall or to have your building burned down. Yet, folks will go out and buy a property or casualty insurance policy without a second thought, right? Often because it's required by their lenders, or they're just more accustomed to thinking from a brick and mortar standpoint. But cyber presents a risk that's both high in frequency and high in severity. And those are generally the risks that you want to transfer out. And I think if we can take steps to educate folks on the likelihood of a cyber attack relative to other losses they might see in their insurance portfolio, it would go a long way to increasing adoption of the product across consumers. The other thing that I would say is, as an industry as a whole, we really need to work a bit harder on that prevention or the prediction piece. BOXX and I would say our two largest competitors do a really, really good job at driving things from a risk-focused approach and that prevention approach. A lot of our peers still take a very traditional approach to cyber insurance, similar to what they do with a commercial general liability or property policy.
Right.
Unfortunately, cyber is not one of those risks that you can approach that way. So I think if more insurance companies take the approach where they push more of these risk management solutions to their clients, they provide those tools to them up front, we'd also see that clients are getting more value from the products that we're putting into the market rather than just that piece of paper that doesn't really kick in until something goes really, really wrong.
Right. No, that's a very insightful call for greater focus and understanding from the insurance sector. And you're right, bridging that gap would clearly benefit so many different small businesses that are out there. Now that we've discussed improvements, it's clear that risk, cybersecurity, and insurance, they must be approached all together. We'd love to now kind of explore how they're interconnected, right? Traditionally, risk, cybersecurity, and insurance, they're viewed as separate topics. Can you explain us, Jonathan, how they are fundamentally interconnected and why businesses need to approach them holistically to manage cyber threats effectively?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's sort of the conversation that we've been trying to drive a lot more over the past, I would say, 3 years, coming out of that hard market. Cyber risk is the risk itself that we're looking to address. So we look at the exposures and the potential impact to an organization. Every organization should be starting with an assessment of their risk. And I'll explain why that is as we go through that channel between cyber risk, cybersecurity, and cyber insurance. But you have to start with some form of risk assessment so that you actually understand how you're exposed. Without doing that, that would be like going out to purchase a home and insuring that home for $2 million without actually understanding how much it's worth, which is why a lot of banks ask you to do an assessment of the value of the home prior to issuing capital.
Right.
So the cyber risk overall forms sort of the umbrella around the other two. When we look at cybersecurity, cybersecurity is once you have assessed that risk, you've identified where you might need to address that risk. The cybersecurity folks come in to help plug some of those holes, or position you in a way where you can mitigate or reduce that risk as a whole. The cyber insurance folks, we're there once you've done all the other work, right?
Right.
I think a lot of folks forget that insurance, by its very nature, is a risk transfer solution. It's intended to address residual risk. So once you've assessed the risk and quantified that risk, once you've taken steps to reduce that risk, you're then put in a position where you have to make a decision as to how much risk you're willing to retain versus transfer out to third parties, including insurance companies. And without taking those first two steps, a couple of things are going to happen. You either won't qualify for cyber insurance, you won't buy enough insurance, or you'll buy too much. And as an industry, we have no hope or expectation that clients buy more cyber insurance just for the sake of buying it. We really do want the policies, the limits, the deductibles on those policies to be tailored as best as possible to that organization.
Right.
So insurance, I always speak about as the last step, despite the fact that it's how I pay my mortgage. But I always leave it to the last step because I don't want folks just to focus on that insurance piece without doing a little bit of that work. It doesn't mean that you can't secure insurance without doing that work first, but you might be doing yourself a disservice as an organization if you don't take those steps to really understand what you're dealing with.
Absolutely. Now, that's a very powerful way to frame the challenge. And you're right, a unified approach across these three pillars, it seems essential for the true cyber resilience. Now, this has been a very enlightening conversation with you, Jonathan. You've shared so much of great insights with us today. To wrap up, what are the key takeaways that you'd like our listeners to remember? And lastly, what makes BOXX's approach unique in addressing the risk gap for SMEs?
Yeah, I think my first takeaway is stay informed, regardless of the source, whether it's a cybersecurity professional, an insurance professional, or a cyber risk advisor. Stay informed of the risk because it's changing every day.
Right.
Yesterday is not the same as tomorrow. And I think organizations that adopt that mentality of cyber as a risk that's constantly changing, they're more likely to be able to address that risk in the most effective way possible. The other piece, or my other recommendation or takeaway, would be to use what you have before going looking for more. Cybersecurity vendors do a really, really good job of pushing a lot of tools and technology at organizations. And if those organizations haven't taken the steps or haven't built the trust needed to know whether or not those tools are actually needed, they might be introducing additional risk by introducing additional tools and technology into their tech stack without actually needing to do it or understanding what they're integrating. And then the last thing I would mention is explore a cyber insurance policy. Cyber insurance is probably the single most effective risk transfer mechanism that organizations can buy. And I'm not just talking about SMEs, I'm talking about organizations that are multinational, multi-billion-dollar organizations. Cyber insurance is the single best means to protect your organization financially from cyber attacks. The bad things are going to happen. It's a matter of, do you have someone to call when that happens, and who's going to pay the bill when that happens? You'd rather be yourself or another organization.
Right.
We're really proud of the work we've done at BOXX to adopt that predict, prevent, respond, and recover approach to cyber insurance. It's served our clients well. We actually managed to stop 80% of cyber attacks before they even need to become a claim, which is pretty great because our clients maintain clean loss history, and they don't have to go through the process of making a claim under their policy and worrying about their financial future. We managed to fix that a lot with our Hackbuster service that we run internally. Right. As a takeaway for BOXX, we're proud of the work we do. We encourage everyone to check us out. or just generally speak with your broker about cyber insurance so that you have a good understanding of what products are out there and how they might be able to support your organization.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for sharing your expertise and your insights with us today. I mean, your practical advice on cyber threats and the proactive role of cyber insurance is truly valuable for our listeners, and we appreciate the time that you took to join us. So
My
thank
pleasure.
you for that.
Thank you for having me.
And that was an insightful conversation with Jonathan Weeks, the president of Canada at BOXX Insurance Inc., on the critical cyber threat landscape for Canadian SMEs, practical strategies for defense, and the proactive role of cyber insurance. BOXX Insurance is dedicated to protecting and digitally safeguarding businesses and homes against cyber threats with all-in-one cyber insurance plus protection solutions. We also want to highlight BOXX's recent awards, including 2024 Canada InsurTech of the Year. So please do check them out. And again, thank you for tuning into the podcast. We appreciate your continued support. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert insights and resources that can help your business thrive. You can also visit our website, CanadianSME.ca, for valuable information and tools. Special shout out to our partners, RBC, UPS, A1 Global College, and Google for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses in Canada. Until next time, please keep innovating and striving for success. We'll see you in the next episode.